محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Last time we defined what we mean by reference angle, and let us remind ourselves with the definition. We said that if we have an angle in standard position in the second quadrant, this theta is in the second quadrant, then theta prime, this theta prime is the reference angle of theta. Notice that theta prime is positive, it is acute, and it is between the terminal side and the x-axis. And notice something important, theta prime is not in standard form. Theta is in standard form, but theta prime is not in standard form. Where is the initial side of theta? This is the initial side of theta. And the terminal side of theta. This is the terminal side of theta prime. Theta prime. So theta prime is from here to here. This is theta prime. It is not in standard form. Pay attention to this important point. So the reference angles are not in standard form, while theta is in standard form. So this is theta in standard form. Theta prime is this angle from here to here. This is theta prime. This is the initial side of theta prime. And it goes like this in the positive direction. And this is the terminal side of theta prime. So this is the reference angle of theta. If theta is here in the fourth quadrant, then this is theta prime, starts from here. The terminal side of theta is the initial side of theta prime. Always the terminal side of theta, not always, okay? Here, in this case, the x-axis is the initial side and the terminal side of theta is also the terminal side of theta prime. So sometimes the initial side of theta is either the x-axis or the terminal side of theta because it has to go in the positive direction. So here, the terminal side is the x-axis, the initial side is the terminal side of theta, and this is theta prime in this direction, in the positive direction. So theta prime is never in standard form. Maybe this is an important point you have to pay attention to it. Okay. Now we learned how to find theta prime, the reference angle, for angles less than 360 or less than 2 pi. Let us today talk about how to find reference angles for angles greater than 360 or 2 pi, okay? Or less than negative 360, negative 2 pi. Of course, less than negative 360 means negative 40, 400, negative 500, negative 700 to the negative direction. Okay. How these are the steps. First, you don't have to follow these steps, okay? But if you follow these steps, it would be easier for you. I'm going to always follow these steps to find the reference angle for an angle greater than 360 or less than negative 360. So first, I have to find a positive angle alpha less than 360 or 2 pi that's coterminal with the given angle. If you remember, the coterminal angles are angles with the same terminal side and all of them in standard positions. So an angle and its coterminal angle are in standard positions and they have the same terminal side and of course the same initial side. How to find the coterminal angles? If you remember, you add or subtract 360 or plus or minus 2 pi. You add or subtract 2 pi times n, multiple 2 pi or more, 2 pi, 4 pi, 6 pi, 360 or a multiple of 360, you get coterminal angles. We can write n. We can write n, okay, where n is an integer. Okay. So this is the first point, or the first step. Then after you find this angle which is less than 360, you go back to the previous method. You draw alpha in a standard position and then you find theta prime. you find the reference angle, which is theta prime. All right, let us take an example. This is an angle greater than 360. So my first step would be 580 minus 360. When I subtract 360, I get a coterminal angle to 580. A coterminal angle to 580 would be 220. The reference angle of 220 is also the reference angle of 580 because 580 and 220 are coterminal. Now the second step is to sketch the graph of 220. Uh, you know that you have to go in the positive direction, and this is 180 and this is 270. So 220 would be somewhere here. Okay, so this angle is the angle 220 in standard position. Of course, if you also add 360, this would be the same graph of 580, except we are missing one rotation, one more rotation. All right. Now, question, where is the reference angle? You should know by now that if you are in the third quadrant, this will give you the reference angle. So this is theta prime. Now, how to find theta prime, the reference angle? How to find this angle? I need it to be positive. So you subtract 220 minus 180 and you get the answer. So 40 is the reference angle of 220. I hope that it's clear. All right. Another example, 8 pi over 3. Is this greater than 2 pi? Remember that 2 pi is 6 pi over 3. So 8 pi over 3 is greater than 6 pi over 3. So I start by subtracting 2 pi from 8 pi over 3. So I subtract 6 pi over 3 from 8 pi over 3. I get 2 pi over 3. So the reference angle of 2 pi over 3 would be equal to the reference angle of 8 pi over 3. Okay, I have the angle in radian, so I have to solve the question in radian. Now I should draw this angle in standard position, 2 pi over 3. Okay, I know that this is pi, so it's 3 pi over 3. So 2 pi over 3 would be less than 3 pi over 3. So this would be the angle 2 pi over 3. And it is graphed in standard position. Now question, where is theta prime? Where is the reference angle? If you are in the second quadrant, this angle is the reference angle. Now how to find the reference angle? I need it to be positive. You start by always the one here, the greater angle. So 3 pi over 3 is greater. So I start by 3 pi over 3 minus 2 pi over 3, and the answer would be pi over 3. So pi over 3 is the reference angle of 8 pi over 3. Another question. Now I have a negative angle. Okay, I need to add 2 pi until I reach a positive angle, coterminal to this. Adding 2 pi, getting a coterminal angle. 2 pi in this case is 12 pi over 6. 12 over 6 will give you 2. Okay, so if you add plus 12 pi over 6, you will get an angle coterminal to this angle. So the angle is negative pi over 6. Negative pi over 6 is coterminal to this angle. I can find the reference angle of negative pi over 6 easily. And if you want, you can add another 12 pi over 6 and find the angle of the reference angle of 11 pi over 6. But I will find the reference angle of negative pi over 6 because I have no problem with it. It's easy. So let us graph this angle, negative pi over 6. You go in the negative direction. If you go in the negative direction, this is negative pi over 2 or negative 3 pi over 6. And this is negative 6 pi over 6, negative pi. Negative 1 over 6 is less than negative 3 over 6, so it would be here. So this is the angle negative pi over 6, and it is in the negative direction. Okay, so this is the initial side, and this is the terminal side of negative pi over 6. Now, a question, where is the reference angle? This is the reference angle because it is the angle between the terminal side and the x-axis. It has to be positive and it has to be acute. So what is theta prime in this case? It has to be positive. It is pi over 6. If this is negative pi over 6, then if you take it in the positive direction, it would be positive pi over 6. So pi over 6 is the reference angle of negative 13 pi over 6. Another question, please do this by yourself. I solved this one. Please try it by yourself. Let me solve part C for you. Okay, so part C, theta is negative 11 pi over 3. If you find 2 pi is 6 pi over 3. This is 11. That's greater than 6 pi over 3. Okay, so I will add 2 pi, which is 6 pi over 3, to theta to get a terminal angle of theta. I have negative 5 pi over 3. I can work with negative 5 pi over 3, or I can add another 6 pi over 3 to get pi over 3. So pi over 3, negative 5 pi over 3, and negative 11 pi over 3. All of these three angles are coterminal angles. And there is only one reference angle for all of them. Okay, for all of them. So the easiest one of them is pi over 3. So if I sketch the graph of pi over 3, it is less than pi over 2. So the graph of pi over 3 is here. So this is pi over 3. It is in the first quadrant. Now what is the reference angle of this angle? It is the same angle. So this is theta and theta prime. So theta prime is also pi over 3. So pi over 3 is the reference angle of pi over 3, and it's the reference angle of negative 5 pi over 3, and it's the reference angle of negative 11 pi over 3, and that's the answer to the question. Please try this by yourself, and also try this one by yourself. Let us do 55. 23 pi over 4. Let me find 2 pi. What is 2 pi here? 8 pi over 4. All right. This is 23 greater than 8. Okay. So I will start subtracting 8 pi over 4 from the angle theta. I get 23 minus 8, 15. 15 pi over 3. It's still 15, still greater than 8. So I will subtract another 8 pi over 4. 15 minus 8 is 7 pi over 4. So 7 pi over 4, 15 pi over 4, and 23 pi over 4 are coterminal angles. All of these angles are coterminal angles. And to find the reference angle of 23 pi over 4, it is enough to find the reference angle of any one of these. 7 pi over 4 is the most easy for me, the easiest one. Okay, so I will sketch the graph of 7 pi over 4. It is in the positive direction. I have to go in the positive direction. This is pi, which is 4 pi over 4. And this is 2 pi, which is 8 pi over 4. So 7 pi over 4 would continue up to here. This is the angle 7 pi over 4. From here to here, this is theta, or coterminal angle to theta. Good. Now where is theta prime? Theta prime is this angle, the angle between 7 pi over 4 and the x-axis. How to find this angle? Theta prime, you can find it by subtracting 8 pi over 4, which is 2 pi, minus 7 pi over 4. Or you just think by yourself what is left here. What should be the angle between 7 pi over 4 and 8 pi over 4? And the answer is pi over 4. All right. I will leave 59 also for you, and negative 13 pi over 3 for you. Please practice at home to understand the objective. All right. The last objective in this section is how to use the reference angle. Why we are studying the reference angles. How to use the reference angles to evaluate trigonometric functions. So that's finally our aim, is to be able to evaluate trigonometric functions without using a calculator. Okay. How to use reference angle to evaluate trigonometric functions? Please look carefully to this statement. The values of the trigonometric functions of a given angle theta are the same as the values of the trigonometric functions of the reference angle theta prime, except possibly for the sine. What does this mean? It means that sine theta is equal to plus or minus sine theta prime. Cosine theta is equal to plus or minus cosine theta prime. Tan theta is equal to plus or minus tan theta prime. Secant theta is equal to plus or minus secant theta prime, and so on. So to find tan 300, you find the reference angle of 300, which would be an acute angle. So it's between 0 and 90. You know how to find the tan of acute angles, pi over 4, pi over 3, pi over 6. So you find tan theta prime, and then you put plus or minus according to the quadrant in which theta lies. Okay, this is the procedure, and please pay attention. First step is to find theta prime. We need to find the reference angle of theta. There will be we need to find a trigonometric function of theta. So for example, he is asking you to find sine theta. How to find sine theta? I find theta prime first, and then I find sine theta prime, and then I see the quadrant in which theta lies, and according to that quadrant I choose positive or negative, so I get the answer. Let us solve the following questions, and please pay attention. And here the question, he will ask you like this: use reference angles to find the exact value, exact. So using the calculator here will not help. I need the exact of each of the following trigonometric functions. And he will say to you, do not use a calculator when this question comes in the exam. So you have to follow these steps. First, 135, I have to find the reference angle of 135. And we learned in the previous objective, to find the reference angle of 135, I have to draw 135 in standard position. This is 180, and in positive direction, 135 would be here. So this is the angle 135 in positive direction. This is theta. All right. Now, second step, you find the reference angle of theta. Okay, what is the reference angle? We just mentioned that this is the reference angle in positive direction. This is theta prime. So how to find theta prime? It is 180 minus 135, and the answer is 45. 180 minus 135 is just 45. All right. So now sine 135 would be equal to plus or minus sine 45. But look to 135. 135 belongs to which quadrant? It's in quadrant 2. Okay. If the angle is in quadrant 2, what is sine theta? What would be sine theta? Or a smart trig class. In the second quadrant, sine is positive. So sine 135 would be positive. So sine 135 would be equal to positive sine 45. And this is 1 over square root of 2 or square root of 2 over 2 from the triangle. You can use the triangle, or if you want to use the calculator here to get this answer, it's no problem. But you have to write this one here. You get 1 point when you write this one, and 1 point when you determine the sign, and 1 point when you find the answer. So usually there are 3 points here. If you just write the answer, you get 1 out of 3, or you may not get any marks. All right, cosine 4 pi over 3. Same steps to find cosine 4 pi over 3. It is greater than 90. Anything, it's not pi over 3, pi over 4, pi over 6. So I need to draw this angle in standard position. This is pi, which is 3 pi over 3. 4 pi over 3 would be greater than 3 over 3. So this is the angle theta, or 4 pi over 3. Okay, this is the first step, to draw the angle 4 pi over 3 in standard position. The second step is to find this angle, which is theta prime, the reference angle. So theta prime is 4 pi over 3 minus 3 pi over 3, which is pi over 3. So the reference angle of this angle is pi over 3. Now look to the graph. 4 pi over 3 is an angle where? In quadrant 3. It's an angle in quadrant 3. In quadrant 3, cosine is negative. So cosine should be negative. So cosine 4 pi over 3 should be equal to negative cosine pi over 3, which is the reference angle. And you find cosine pi over 3 from the triangle. If you remember, we studied a triangle. This is pi over 3, and this is pi over 6. Here 1, square root of 3, 2. So cosine pi over 3 is 1 over 2, the adjacent over the hypotenuse. This is cotan negative pi over 3. Let me solve it also for you. First step, I need to sketch the graph of negative pi over 3. This is easy because it is just here in the negative direction. This is the angle negative pi over 3. All right. Now I need to find the reference angle to this angle. The reference angle should be in the positive direction. So it is pi over 3. So theta prime is pi over 3. Okay. Now, negative pi over 3 lies where? In the fourth quadrant, quadrant 4. What does it mean? Cotan in quadrant 4, is it positive or negative? A smart trig class. So in quadrant 4, only cosine is positive. So cotan is negative. So cotan negative pi over 3 is negative cotan pi over 3, which is the reference angle. And from this triangle here, cotan is adjacent over opposite, adjacent over opposite. So it is 1 over square root of 3. If you multiply by the conjugate, this would be cotan negative pi over 3. Please solve these three questions accordingly. It is similar to the three questions we solved together. I stop here, and inshallah tomorrow or the next class we will continue with some more